All right, let's jump right in. What we're going to be rebuilding in this case is this scenario right here. Although it looks like a sword that's being laid down, we've got the master sword here. We are going to be rebuilding this entire flow. That is a Slack bot chat app using AI. And then with this type of thing, you can also build on tons of things. You could add different nodes here, different paths that do different things like RAG retrieval and do different tooling and all of these sorts of things. But this is the base, right? Where we're going to receive a message over here on the left. We're going to then send it to AI and we're going to respond to that message using our own Slack bot. So we are going to be rebuilding this from scratch. Let's go. First thing we need to do is have a blank scenario. Look at that. I've got a blank scenario right here. And we are going to be interacting and receiving messages from Slack. So we need to create a Slack app. That Slack app has to send events to Latenode, and then Latenode has to be able to receive them. So actually the first step we're going to do is going to be inside of our Slack. And you can see right here, here's our beautiful, beautiful Slack. Actually, the very first thing anyone needs to do is go into here, come into themes, and change this theme. It is very not great. So we're going to go change the theme. If you like the default Slack theme, you're crazy. There you go. Now we have our theme and we've got our Slack. Okay, so we're going to go to the Slack API. We're going to go to api.slack.com. We're going to go to your apps and we're going to start building our first app. Woohoo! So we're going to create an app from scratch. We're going to call this one, let's give our guy a name. So I don't know, we're talking about Zelda. So what's the Navi? This is Navi. This is Navi. Here we go. And we got tutorials. And we're going to create our app. So we're building our AI assistant. Configure app and code. No, thank you. All right, so we're going to need to add features and functionality here. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to enable bots. So we need to have bots because we are a bot. So we're going to assign our bots here. So we're going to review scopes to add. So first things first, we need to get some scopes going. Here we go. Okay, we're kind of skipping around actually, but let's add scopes. Okay, so one thing you need to do is you need to go into your bot and you need to come down here, boop, scopes. Scopes allow you to behave as a bot and do certain things like read messages, respond to messages, add reactions, read files, make files, all of those different sorts of things. So we're going to add scopes. First off, that is totally fine. We can go ahead and do that. So we're going to need quite a few scopes, I think, depending on what you want your bot to do. But of course, we want to be able to read app mentions, view messages that directly mention Navi in conversations that the app is in. Okay, we're going to need to conversations write. Definitely wanted that. We're going to need history, channel history. We're going to need all of those histories, actually. History, group history, IM history, MPIM history. I'm just going to add all of those. We're also going to need reactions because we're going to do some stuff with reactions. So we're going to reactions read, reactions write. We want to have files read. We're going to have files write, remote files read, and remote files. This is the boring part, right? Let's make sure I didn't forget any scopes here. Commands. We're going to want commands. Okay. Files read, files write. I think that is all. Okay. I think that is good. So we are going to have all of our different scopes here. Bada bing, bada boom. Let's actually come back up and give our guy a little name here. So Navi. Here we go. A helpful fairy assistant. Okay, and we need an image. So what we can actually do is we need an image. Trigger on run once. Let's go to our DALL-E 3, OpenAI DALL-E. This is totally off the thing here. A fun avatar for Navi, the helpful assistant. Run node once. There we go. We're going to see what our little assistant comes back as. And here. Save changes. Nice. You're welcome. All right, we're going to install this to our workspace. We're going to hit allow. And there we go. So we have an app created. It's got scopes. It's got an image. Very important. And now what we can do is grab the token. So what we're going to need is this OAuth token right here. And it's going to be this guy right here, this bot user OAuth token. And what this will allow us to do is interact as the bot inside of this workspace. We're going to copy this and we're going to come back to Latenode. We're actually going to save it as a global variable. Okay, so over here, what we can do is we can come to variables and we can create a new variable, and let's call this, it's a string. Let's call this Navi Slackbot, and here is the value. Cannot contain spaces. Navi Slackbot. There you go. And we'll hit save. And now we've saved it as a global variable. So now we can reference this inside of our piece here. Okay, so we no longer need the chatbot image here, and this we also no longer need because we're going to be using a trigger on webhook node. Okay, so now we're going to come back. We're going to grab. What we're going to do is we're going to grab the webhook URL, the production webhook URL right here, and we're going to give it to our Slack bot as an event subscription. So we're going to say enable events. We're going to put in our request URL, and what it's going to do is it's going to send a challenge parameter that we have to respond with in order to make this work, right? We're also going to come here and add bot events. So we're going to add app mentions read. Perfect. Okay, so it's doing this challenge, which we have to respond to from Latenode. So we're actually going to come back to Latenode, keep clicking on the wrong thing, and we're going to deploy this. We're going to come back over here. We're going to say retry because we need the this, right? So we know it's going to have in the body of the post request, it's going to have type and challenge, and we need to respond with that exact challenge in order to verify this. In fact, we should be able to see here is that incoming data. So we can see under body, we have challenge token type, right? So this challenge we have to send in the response. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a webhook response, and in the body we're going to do some JSON here, and we're going to say challenge, and the value is going to come from the sample value that we're going to use. So we're going to come to the body. This is how you do this is how I do the run once feature really. Like I always just grab details from previous runs. So go to body, then click on copy, then come over here to your trigger. We need sample data to work with. So we're going to do run node once, post body, paste that in, test workflow. Now we're going to have test data to work with, which means here we can actually do the challenge, right? So challenge, and then we're going to respond with the challenge thing there, and then close our brackets, hit save, deploy this again. Now when we retry, bada bing, bada boom, it is now verified. And we can double check this by going to our tokens or our history, refresh, we see our successful run, and we see that we responded correctly with the challenge parameter there. Okay, now we do only want this to happen when it's challenged, so we don't want this to run always. So we're going to set up a filter here, and we're going to say is challenge, because we're going to come off of this and do other things. So we're going to say that that challenge equals true. So there we go. Now this path, this route will only run when the challenge parameter exists. Otherwise it won't. Let's give these a name. Give this a name. We'll say respond to challenge. Perfect. Okay. And we'll deploy this. Okay. Now that we have, we've installed the app, we've enabled events, and we're listening for app mentions. What we can do is actually go to Slack now and add our Slack bot to a channel. So we got Navi here. We're going to add Navi to this channel. So we're going to say integrations, and we're going to say add an app, and we're going to choose our helpful assistant. And now Navi is in our app. So if we say at Navi, how are you Nothing should happen, but we should now see an event inside of Latenode. So we're going to come back to Latenode. We're going to refresh. If everything has worked as expected. Oh, we have to save changes. Save changes would be nice to do. Okay, so let's do it again. At Navi, hi. So if we come back, refresh. Why are we not seeing, did I do the test one? Let's see here. Change my new URL. Verified. Beauty. Save changes. I wonder if I have to reinstall the app. Install your app, reinstall the workspace. There we go. Okay, now let's try it at Navi. Hi. Okay, come to Latenode, hit refresh. There it is. Okay, we had to reinstall it. So there we go. Now we can see in the body we have a bunch of other details, a bunch of more details. We have an event, and then we can see that the type is app mention. We also can see what our bot ID is. This is going to be important. And we can see the event timestamp. We're also going to need that. And we can see the channel. So there's lots of information here that we're actually going to need, including the text, which should just say hi. Right, yep, right there. Okay, so this is good. Now we can work with this. Let me copy this body because we're going to use this now as our sample data. So we're going to run node once. We're going to say test workflow, request accepted. Now our test data is going to be all of that app mention event data. And if we actually were to run once, run the full scenario here. So we can do that again, test workflow. This did not actually go through because it wasn't a challenge. So this condition was not met. Instead, what we need to do is respond to the event when it is an app mention type of data. So we're going to create a new node here. We're going to say add node, webhook response. We don't really need a body. We just need the response here. And this one is going to be set up a filter. This one is going to be app mention event. So when it's an app mention event, we have to respond within 3 seconds. That's a Slack rule. You have to respond within 3 seconds. So we're just going to say when the event type equals app mention. So here we go. Where's equals? Equals app mention. There we go. Now when it's app mention, it'll go down this path. Meaning that we'll respond to the webhook as soon as possible. So let's come here, respond to app mention, and then we can continue to do our things. So let's go ahead and deploy this and test it again just to make sure it goes down this path. So we're going to say a Navi hi one more time. Here we go. So then we'll come back to our Latenode instance, we refresh, we should see a production deployment here with a success message, and it did go down this path. So there we go, we are cooking, as the kids say. Okay, the next thing we're gonna do is a set variable node. And the set variable node is gonna be handy because then we can just reference these set variables later without having to redo some formulas and things like that. So we're gonna set variables here. First of all, we're going to come to set variables. And the first one we're gonna set is going to be reference to the bot ID. So our bot ID is going to be referenced, we can actually see it in the text here. So we're going to grab from the @ all the way up to the piece there. And we're going to do in Slack world, you wrap it in these to show that you're mentioning a bot. So this is our bot ID. And we're going to use that to say like, hey, this is you, don't respond to yourself type of thing. The next thing we're going to do is define, oh, there, I ran it once. There we go. Okay, now we can see, did it reference our bot ID? Yes, because it's hard-coded. Okay, so we're going to add more. We're going to reference the thread timestamp. The thread timestamp is essentially like a thread ID, and it's how you respond in a thread, and you continue to respond in a thread as opposed to responding to the channel directly every single time. So the thread timestamp either needs to be the initial message. So for example, in this case, this is the initial message, right? This is not a thread yet. But if I were to respond in a thread and say hi, then there's an ID of this, which is going to be the thread ID, and then there's each individual message also has this ID. So the thread ID is going to reference this top level ID as a thread, or the top level ID as itself. So if that makes any sense, let's go in and build that logic. So what we're going to do is wrap a few functions here. So we're going to say if, and inside the if, we're going to say not, and inside the not, we're going to say empty. So if a value is not empty, meaning the value exists. And I found that this way works to do it as opposed to doing like what we did here. Like for some reason, this one's just more consistent besides just doing is true. So yeah. And so if a value is not empty, then use it. Then use it here. Otherwise, do something else. So if the value we're looking for is going to be thread timestamp, which we don't have because we haven't messaged in a thread yet. So let's go do that first. Let's save this and deploy. And then let's actually come back to our bot and in a thread mention Navi again. Hi. So there we go. Now we'll have the thread timestamp because we're simulating the event here. So we're going to refresh. Here's our input. That's totally fine that it errored because we can still come and grab the input body and then come to this and rerun our test data with the new app mention event that has a thread timestamp. And then come to here, and now if we go boom, we should see thread timestamp. There we go. Whew. Okay, so if not empty, so if this value exists, then use it. So reference itself. Otherwise, reference just the normal timestamp like this. So go ahead and hit save. Let's run this, run node. So what the output of this should be as an incorrect number of arguments 4. So let's see, I put this in the wrong spot somewhere. Got to get my parentheses 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. If not empty, then here. Then use it. Otherwise, use timestamp. Okay, now run it. Okay, so this thread timestamp should represent the timestamp of the thread. So the top level, so in this case, the top level like guy here. And we can check that by looking at the event data again. It's data right here, so event ends in 639. Whereas the just timestamp ends in 199. So if we come to this, it should end in 639, meaning we are appropriately grabbing the thread timestamp. If it was not a thread, we would grab the other value, just the normal timestamp, which is exactly what we need in this case in order to respond to threads appropriately. So we're going to grab just the normal timestamp as well, just so we can reference this one variable from our set variable node as opposed to a bunch of other variables. And then finally, we're going to have a system message that we're providing a simple interface, a simple field we can edit right here that will change the input to the ChatGPT node easily. And I'm just going to copy this value, and then here we're going to replace the user ID. Or the bot ID. So we're saying you are a helpful assistant that is playful and witty, or assisting with conversations that are happening in Slack. Understand that you may be added to the middle of a conversation between multiple people. You can mention people directly by @ their ID. If you do that, that reads bad, but whatever. Format as markdown for Slack. Your ID is this. Don't ever mention yourself. Okay, so let's hit save and run this node, and then we can move on. Sweet. The next thing we want to do is actually add a reaction to the text here. So it just adds that little pop. It just lets it know that like, hey, something automated happened and something is coming, right? It's like, I acknowledge you, I see you, I'm going to be doing something here for you. So in order to do that, we are going to be using the HTTP node. So HTTP. And we're going to create a custom request to the Slack URL where we can add in that reaction. So the URL for that is this one, slack.com API reactions add. And we can actually find that Slack API reference reactions add. So here we go. It's going to tell us what we need. We need to send a post request. We need to have those scopes. So good thing we added the reactions right scope. We need to pass on the token. We need to pass on the channel, the name of the emoji that we want to send, and the timestamp. So good thing we got a hold of that timestamp. So let's come back here. So we've got our URL. We need to pass the token. It is a post request. So we're going to come down here. We're going to authorization. And we're going to type this in, bearer, and then we're going to come to our variables because we saved it as a global variable, and we're going to reference our new Navi Slackbot Slack token there. Other values that we are going to send are we can come back and look. We need the channel, the name, and the timestamp. Channel, name, timestamp. Channel, which we can get from right here. Oops, wrong spot. Channel. Name. So this is the name of the emoji. Let's just do the eyes. Timestamp. Is it just TS? Is that what they want? TS? Nope. Actual timestamp. Timestamp. And this one we're going to reference our set variables for the thread. Nope. Not the thread. The individual message. Because we want to acknowledge every individual message that comes in. So there we go. This should now work. Let's run the node once, see what happens. And we got a success. So if we come back to our Slack, here it is. On that last mention, we now have eyes, the eyes reaction. Okay, we are moving right along. All right, next up, we need to get the conversation history from the entire thread. So instead of just receiving the data from what was mentioned, so instead of just the text of when we specifically mentioned the bot, we actually want to grab the entire thread. Because what if you say a message like this, like what if I said, you are cool, and then I mentioned Navi, say, did you see that? Well, if we go and check the request here, so if we go success, we know it errored. If we go and check the incoming data here, we're going to be able to see that at that event, inside of the text, we just see, did you see that, right? So we don't have the context around the entire conversation. That's what we want. We want to feed AI the entire context around the conversation so that it knows everything that is happening. So in order to do that, let's go ahead and give these some names first. So set variables. This one is for add reaction, and it's the eyes. There we go. So we add the reaction, and now what we want to do is add a node, which is going to be another HTTP request node, HTTP request, and this one is going to be to get the entire conversation history. So here we go, get the entire conversation history, get thread history. The URL, or rather the endpoint that we're going to use is the conversations replies endpoint inside of the API. So here we go, conversations.replies. This is going to retrieve a thread of messages posted to a conversation. That sounds pretty much exactly like what we want. So it's a GET request to this endpoint, and we need to pass in the channel and the thread timestamp. So there we go. Let's come to this. Let's paste in our URL. We've got query params. So because it's a GET parameter, so we're going to do timestamp for our thread timestamp. So we're going to come to our little set variables helper. So we're going to grab the thread timestamp, and we're going to grab the channel. And let's grab the channel. Channel right there. And is it TS or timestamp? I always mess that up. TS or timestamp. TS in this case. So channel timestamp. Okay, there we go. All right, so then what we need to do is add in our authorization. So authorization, and then type in bearer, and then choose from our global variables, our Navi Slackbot one there. And let's test this. So we'll hit run node once. We're going to test this node, and we are going to see what we get back. So we got it's 200. We have this body, messages, and then here are all of the messages. So we have an array of objects, and we can see the text inside each one of these messages. So the very last one is, did you see that? And indeed, we do have everything that we need now. So that's our get thread messages. Beautiful. The next thing we want to do is actually with the JavaScript node, and we're going to want to convert this format. So what is here? So it's under body, messages, there's an array, and then we got text. So we're going to convert all of that into the format that ChatGPT wants, right? So if we go and look at the ChatGPT API, the chat completions API, we can see that it wants to be able to, maybe I can zoom in here, it wants to be able to have an array of objects where there's a role, there's which is either system, user, or assistant, and then there's content. So role and content, and our current schema does not match that. Here we have body, messages, a bunch of stuff, text. So we want to convert it to be exactly how completions want it. So an array of objects with role and content. So we're going to add a node. This is going to be code, and it's going to be JavaScript. Here we are. And we're going to utilize the custom params because it's going to be easier to kind of make it interoperable, meaning it's easier to edit form fields up here, so input fields, than it is usually to do the code. So I'm actually just going to copy and paste the prepared bit I have. We're going to generate those params. Let's hit save, and then we can quickly walk through what is happening. Can I zoom in here? Okay, so we're defining custom params. So custom params is an object of properties where those are more objects, right? So we have our property here, which is a type of string. We have the title and the description, and that corresponds to these. So we have our title, and here's the description. This is going to take an input that is type string. And then we have our system message, and those go there. So what we need to do is come here, got to zoom out, go to tools, and then here we're going to choose our body. So our message history body object. So message history body object right there. And then here we're going to choose the system message from our set variables node. So here's our system message. And with that, let's go ahead and hit run node once and see what the output we get is. Okay, so now we have outputted an object with a property called chat history. And in this chat history, we have a role, we have content. Inside content, we have an object of type and text, right? Okay, perfect. So this is now formatted how we would want to see it to send to OpenAI. So one thing here as well is I am passing in my access token here, which we could probably create a param for up here, so it's a little bit easier. In fact, let's just do that so we can kind of see what that would look like. So instead of system message, let's type in access token, type a string, the access token for your Slack bot, and then we can access this using the data.access token property. So if we generate the params, here we're going to have our new field. So we can come to tools, let's go to variables, let's choose Navi Slackbot variable there, and then down here where we're passing in that authorization with the Baird, we're going to change this to be, let's see if I can zoom in, change that to be from what it was before to now data.access token. So there we go. That should now still work for us. Let's run it again, just to make sure it does. Zoom back out. Check the messages, and bada bing, bada boom. There we go. So notice how we're prefixing it with the user ID, said, and then this is the bot, right? So this is our bot ID, and then it says hi. And we're doing this so that it can pop into a conversation and know who is saying what. So it knows that, oh, this user said this. So if it ever ats or mentions someone, then it will know who actually said what. So that is what we're doing there. So then this, let's give it a title. Let's say format chat history. Boom, and we'll save that. And then next step is we're going to send this entire thing to ChatGPT. So we're going to say AI chat, OpenAI chat. We're going to send a message to ChatGPT. We're going to use this one, which is going to use Latenode credit. So it's going to use some of our credits for this, but then we don't have to have an API key, right? And we don't have to worry about that authorization. So that is kind of nice. It makes it easy and nice. It makes it nice to be able to have this without... it makes it nice not having to worry about like that, the authorization and all that sort of stuff. So our user prompt is going to be, where's our text? Text right there. Our dialogue history, this is going to be our chat history from the most recent formatted piece there. We're not passing in an image. We can basically leave all of the rest of this as is. Okay, so let's run this and see what it comes back with. All right, we already have a response. Let's see what it is. Result, choices, messages, content. There it goes. Thanks for the shout out. See, now it's mentioning me because we included that and we told it if you're going to mention someone, do it in this format. It has to be in the brackets with the @ sign. That was part of the system prompt. It's great to be part of this thread. What's cooking? Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So then let's title this. Let's say send chat to AI. Boom. And finally, the last step here is we're going to actually send that back to Slack in that thread. So for this, we can actually just use the built-in Slack bot action here. And we're going to say... list replies. We're trying to find reply to a message. So we want to send a custom message. This is what we want to do because we want to control all of the different things. So send a custom message. Let's give this a name. We're going to say reply to Slack. We're going to map our connection here, and we're going to choose our variable. We're going to choose our Slack bot guy there. The bot username should already be set. All of this should already be set, so we don't need to set any of this. What we're going to do is come down to channel. We're going to map this. We're going to map this to the very beginning, the incoming channel ID there. Beautiful. Our text is going to be the text from the... the text going back is going to be the last, it's going to be the text from AI. So here we go, content, send text as Slack markdown, attachments, unfurl media, parse link names. I think everything else is, here we go, thread timestamp. This is where we're going to use our helper again. So that's set variable right here, thread timestamp. And hit run node. Let's see what happens. Moving error. Missing scope. Okay, so that's interesting. Did we not include the right scope for sending a message as the bot? Okay, so let's come back to our Slack API. Let's go to our OAuth and permissions. So we've got our token here that we've been using, but let's come to scopes, and we want to be able to have messages or replies. Okay, so let's add this. Let's do chats. Which scope is it here? Chat right. Send messages as Navi. We forgot that one. Now we have to reinstall the app. Okay, so here we go. Reinstall. Come back. Hit allow. Boom, bam. And it is time to test this baby out. Well, let's run it again. Let's run it again. See if we get that reply. Now that we've updated the scopes, we've updated the permissions for our bot. Let's see what happens. Okay. Says it was okay. Says it was true. Let's come back. And here we are. Thanks for the shout out. Okay, little error here with it actually mentioning me. It's great to be part of the thread. What's cooking? I wonder actually if we just change the send as Slack Markdown. Actually, send text as Slack Markdown. I wonder if that will change it. Let's come back. There it is. So send message as Slack Markdown now actually mentioned me. So there you go. Let's add in a little bit more functionality here because I think it's fun to do more happening. So we are going to actually use the blocks text here. So we're actually going to use the blocks. Okay. So what we're going to do here is in the text, we're actually going to choose the message, the content that came back. And then here, we're going to have a plain text area, and we're going to say mention Navi, again to continue, right? And so basically in Slack, you have this array of objects of different types of blocks, right? They call them blocks because it's different type of content at each section. And so let's do one thing. Let's do a few things here. One, let's upload a custom emoji. So we're going to add an emoji. We're going to upload our Navi little logo here and give it a name. We're going to call this Navi. Okay. So there we go. We're going to hit save. And in our block, instead of just like this, we're gonna do the Slack like emoji thing there. So the 2 dots, Navi, and then colon again. Now let's hit save, and then let's run this one more time, and we should have just a slightly different appearance in our message. So it says success, and so now here we go. We have just a slightly different thing where it says mention Navi again to continue. So it's just that extra piece on top of the message to let the person know that, hey, if you want to keep the conversation going, we can. Okay, so let's deploy this. Here we go. We're going to go in testing mode. We're going to see how everything is cooking. Here we are. We're got our sword with one guard happening. So it's deployed. So let's come back and do a message. So at Navi, tell me a joke. Okay. So now it's going to add the eyes as a reaction, and then it's going to respond. So the eyes just give it that initial like, hey, I see you, I hear you, I got you. Why don't scientists trust atoms? Because they make up everything. I'm pretty sure it tells this joke all the time. Like, this is like one of the only jokes I ever hear it do. Okay, so we're going to say that is a terrible joke. Please tell me another one. And I'm demonstrating that we haven't mentioned Navi yet, right? So now if I say Navi without anything else, it was actually going to retrieve the entire history every time, and then it can respond accordingly. So, all right, how about this one? Why did the Scarecrow win an award? Because he was outstanding in his field. I think I've heard that one a lot too. So AI only cycles between about 3 jokes, which is fantastic. And then finally, I think what this does, I'm pretty sure the code here is also set up to handle images. So it's properly handling, it is function to download the images. So we can also send it an image. So let's test this out. Upload from computer. Here we go. And say, what is this? And it should handle the ability for it to upload this to ChatGPT and it to see it using the vision model and then come back with a description of what it is. Now, it may not have worked actually, because we're not getting an answer. So we can actually come back, we can check, we're going to see what the error is, It failed at us right here. Unsupported image type. I wonder if that's... let's just try a different image. And then if it doesn't work, we'll fix it later. So I'll upload another image. ABC. What is this? An otter. Beautiful. You know what? We actually have to do it in a new conversation. So let's do it here. That's not it. This one. Navi, what is this? Let's see if the AI, the image capability works. So we got the eyes. We're going to come back, refresh. Okay, so images are not working yet. So likely a code error was working before. So that is always lovely when it doesn't work. All right, so to finish this off, what we're going to do is come back and we're going to say one final to complete our sword here. We're going to add one more webhook to say any other response. Respond to everything else. Respond to everything else. So any other messages that come from Slack are going to receive that response, because otherwise Slack will attempt to retry them and it will do those. It will keep sending it until it gets a response, and we don't want that. So we just want it to know, like, hey, I got your message. Stop sending it. We're not doing anything with it. However, there is more you could build on, and we won't do it in this video. So if you want to see more, go ahead and, do the like, subscribe, whatever. If you want to see more, we can add on additional functionality. So there's things in here, for example, we can go to interactivity and shortcuts, and we can turn this on, and we can do... we can add shortcuts, right? So we can allow people to do right click and then do crazy things there. We can add in slash commands. So for example, you could say, like the classic Midjourney one, imagine, we could have it generate images. So if it was a slash command to this that said image, we could have it generate an image and send that back to Slack. Obviously we'd have to fix the images. Or, specific to your business. You could say things like, hey, make this a task. Remind me about this. Follow up. That is in addition to just what you're doing with normal Slack, right? Slack has remind and follow up. So maybe those are bad examples. But maybe you want it to extract content from a page. So you could say / SEO and then enter a page URL. And so then this would go and scrape it and it would get SEO details. It would do whatever you want, right? The sky's the limit, because you can do anything here with these nodes and then return that response back to Slack. You just have to remember, first respond to it and then do the other things. And you have to handle the threads specifically. Like if you want to reply to a thread, then you need to use the thread timestamp. If you want to interact with just that single message, then it's the TS, the timestamp, the event timestamp, things like that. And then obviously you can play with the system message and all of that. So there it is. That is how to build a Slack chatbot using Latenode for your business.